Okay, welcome. This is Ross Miller, and in this video, I will be describing the proposed concentration for our undergrad kinesiology program titled Biomechanics and Movement Science. The focus of this concentration, as you might guess from the title, will be on biomechanics, and so more specifically or verbosely, you could think of the focus of this concentration as being on the study of living systems through the lens of mechanics. You could think of it as focusing on the forces that act on and within a living system like the human body and the effects of those forces. Even more specifically than that, you could think of this concentration as focusing on why humans move the way we do and the consequences of moving in certain ways on the health of the body. And these are just what I would consider here as more and more specific, or proceeding from very general to more specific definitions of biomechanics as a scientific discipline here. So really this would be for students who are interested beyond Kines 300 in doing a really deep dive into biomechanics as a subdiscipline in kinesiology. The career pathways this concentration would serve for our graduates, at least among the career pathways it would serve, would be students interested in working professionally in sports science and data science. Most might be a little bit generous, but many pro sports teams, in particular, but not restricted to Major League Baseball, now have professionals on staff who focus specifically on biomechanics and on analyzing the biomechanics and quantitative data extracted from their athletes in training and in practice and in competitions, and using those data to inform coaching and training of the athletes and various other elements related to performance and to overall health of the athletes. And I'm envisioning this concentration being a good start for students that might want to get into that field professionally. Typically, those jobs would require a graduate degree, or would be looking for somebody with a graduate degree, but this would be great undergraduate work for somebody interested in eventually getting into a career like that. Clinical gait analysis would be another possible career pathway served by somebody with this concentration in our major. In many hospitals or in many military treatment facilities, it's fairly common to do clinical gait analysis on patients either before a treatment to kind of figure out what their issues might be, and to plan for what the best treatment might be, and also after a treatment to analyze how they're doing or how effective the treatment was. This is actually kind of rare in hospitals as general use, but specifically for children's hospitals or working with children with cerebral palsy, doing quantitative biomechanical analysis of their gait pre and post surgery is a very common thing. And in military treatment facilities, doing biomechanical analyses of service members or of veterans before treatments or after treatments, like if they have a limb loss surgery, and selecting the best prosthesis or orthotics for them or something to that effect, is a pretty common thing and pretty common application of biomechanics. And this would again be a good kind of entry level knowledge for somebody looking to get into a career in clinical gait analysis in that type of setting. Prosthetics and orthotics would be another career pathway possibly served by this concentration. Prosthetics and orthotics is, of course, not just all about biomechanics. Biomechanics is just one element of that field, but it's a very important element, and certainly one of the core elements of that field, involved in designing prostheses and in fitting a prosthesis to an individual. And so it, again, would be good entry-level knowledge or entry-level qualifications for somebody looking to go on to, say, P&O school or to a professional P&O program and eventually get into that field. And then the last one I had listed here is the footwear industry. You could actually not just restrict it to footwear necessarily, but you could also think of this as just being the general sports equipment industry. It used to be the case in footwear that Nike had the only biomechanics lab in the footwear industry. Now basically every major footwear company has a biomechanics lab staffed with people with biomechanics backgrounds or biomechanical engineering backgrounds that are involved in developing their products and in testing their products and things of that nature. And a pretty popular industry right now, a pretty hot industry, and something that this concentration could give students a good background in for getting into that industry. The curriculum for this concentration would have the normal kinesiology core unadjusted, so they'd still all take those same 7 core classes. We would then have what I'm calling here the technical foundation, which is essentially additional support courses that they would be required to take, along with the existing support courses of the kinesiology majors, so the A&P courses and things like that. Along with those courses, they would be required to take an intro level physics course, either physics 121 or 131. They would be required to take the first calculus course that the math department offers, Math 140. And they would also be required to take a course in an entry-level course in computer programming, and specifically in MATLAB programming. That's what Math 206 is. MATLAB, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of the standard in science, or the most popular tool in science and industry for what's called scientific computing, for writing scripts and programs for working with scientific data in general, but biomechanical data specifically, and for doing general scientific computing and mathematical modeling and those sorts of things. Math 206 is the class the math department offers in MATLAB programming. It has Math 140 as a prereq, and so that would be a sequence of courses these students would take. Given that adding a sequence there may complicate their scheduling and graduation timelines, possibly, they could also alternatively, instead of Math 206, could take Kines 474, which is our in-house course that we offer to our students on MATLAB programming. The last one here is ENES Engineering Science 100, which is Introduction to Engineering Design. This is basically learning the engineering perspective on designing mechanical systems and on working with teams to develop engineering products and engineering solutions to problems and things of that effect, which I think is an important background for somebody interested in biomechanics, especially if they're going into an industry setting and not necessarily going on to a graduate program in biomechanics. It's also the only engineering course in that entire college that I can find that's open as a general elective that would be easy for our majors to take and to get into. And since there's so much overlap between biomechanics and between engineering, I think it's important that they take one engineering course just to kind of get their feet wet in that world. They would then, majors that are concentrating in this concentration would then still, of course, take upper level options. They would be choosing from a reduced list of the available upper level options to be concentrating in biomechanics and movement science. And so this is just a list of some of our current 300 and 400 level options that are closely tied to the world of biomechanics and movement science that they might choose from here to meet this requirement here. I have 3 of these courses that you see highlighted in bold and italics here. That's because I'm envisioning that students in this concentration, while they could select which options they wanted to take from this list, they would be required to have one of them at least be one of these 3 highlighted courses here, because those are the 3 that we're teaching right now, that we're offering right now, that are really closely tied to biomechanics. 402 is my class, Biomechanics of Sport. 405 is Dr. Klosner's class, Manual Muscle Testing. And 498V is Dr. Shim's course, Clinical Biomechanics. These students could also, with instructor approval, take graduate courses in biomechanics, probably primarily my courses or Dr. Shim's courses. And Kines 497 would not be removed as from these students' curriculums, but would be an optional course for these students. And that's why this is 15 credits up here instead of the usual 12 credits. They could take Kines 497 to be part of those 15 credits, but they don't have to take Kines 497. It's optional, just like any other 400 level option up here. The expected size that I'm thinking for this concentration is that it would probably be about 10 to maybe 50 students at any given time. So based on depending on the size of our major, probably no more than maybe 5 to 10% of the total students in the major I'm envisioning would be in this concentration at any given time. And that's probably a generous estimate of what the demand for this would be like. I'm just trying to give a generous upper limit on it there. And that's based on the notion that Kines 300 has maybe 300 students in it in any year. And I would say at most there's maybe no more than 10% of those students in any year that are really super interested in biomechanics and really want to do a deep dive in biomechanics. And so that's just kind of my ballpark estimate of the basis for how popular this would be and how many students it would be serving. In order to, despite its relatively small size there, in order to serve students effectively with it, for additional resources, I think we would need one additional instructor in the program, somebody tasked primarily with teaching Kines 300 at least once a year. That would free up me and Dr. Shim primarily to teach our 400 level courses more often for these students, or to develop new 400 level courses to broaden that list on the previous slide a little bit, or new graduate courses in biomechanics. Despite the small expected demand here, without that additional instructor, I don't think we'd be able to offer this concentration in a satisfactory fashion for our students that would be useful to them and would allow them to concentrate in it and graduate in a timely fashion. Me and Dr. Shim are really the only two instructors that teach consistently in this area, and I think with just the two of us teaching most of the courses that these students would be opting to take, I think we'd probably not be able to offer the current courses often enough for them to take the courses that they need to take. So we probably need one additional instructional staff here for this to be something that we can feasibly do.